Welcome to the Boardroom. I'm Roz Gold-Onwude, and I'm here today with Philadelphia Union head coach Jim Curtin. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Roz. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Us too. The Philadelphia Union is a relatively new soccer franchise, joining the MLS, beginning playing the MLS in 2010. And you were there from inception. What's it like building a culture in a brand new franchise?
So when you talk about the Philadelphia Union, like you said, it's a very new club. I had the opportunity to start coaching at the youth academy with players age 8 years old in our club once I finished my playing career. So I've seen it at all levels. I've seen it in the youth academy, the reserve team, and now the first team as an assistant coach and eventually the head coach. As you mentioned, it is a young club, and we're still learning each and every year and growing each and every year. But recently we've had some real success. If I was to jump on the elevator with you and I had 30 seconds to give you the snapshot of what the Philadelphia Union means, we basically have three pillars that we really rely on. Number one, we rely on these pillars whether we're winning or whether we're losing. We always have to look back on them as a club and say this is what we stand for and are we going in the right direction. Number one is we want to build from within. So we'll always look from within our club to promote not just players but also coaches. So internally we'll search to try to improve things with our Philadelphia Union homegrown players and our staff as well. The second pillar that we believe in is cohesiveness. We all have to be on the same page. So communication is huge in our organization. But that cohesiveness on the field, that 11 players working together can be bigger than any team of superstars and individuals. So we are emblematic of the city in that we are kind of a blue collar, we'll punch above our weight, Rocky mentality. And the players really embrace that part of things because everybody feels like they have a voice and everybody feels like a real part of it. And then the third pillar, which our ownership group is very big on, is innovation. We have to find sports science, whether it be how we draft, whether it be analytics and how we break things down. We have to find little advantages in innovation that set us apart from other teams. We're not just going to frivolously spend and buy a $15 million player. We really want to build our own, and finding every little advantage in that is what we believe in. So those three pillars are what we always kind of rely on and fall back on. And as a young coach, I've been fortunate to see kind of all stages and grow with the club. And now we are, one of the teams that other teams in league fear, which is has shown how far we've come, which is something that I'm proud of as a coach.
Your enthusiasm is contagious. You played in the MLS as a player. You were there for the inception. Head coach of the team, and it's been a steady rise for you and the team. So everything to your point. I loved how you pointed out build from within and the innovation and trying to make advantages of the players you already have. So what is key for a coach to identify potential and then develop that talent? I know you have a team this year full of youth, returners, and depth.
Yeah, I get excited when I talk about my players and my team. We're represented by 12 different countries. We're represented by teenagers. We have 17, 18-year-old kids for us and making a big impact. A lot of them grew up in the Philadelphia area. I grew up in Philadelphia myself, so there is that added pride and that feeling of not wanting to let your hometown down. So the group that we have and the culture that we've been able to create in a pretty short amount of time is something that is strong. Look, it's a time in our country right now where it's a tough time. Mostly is recognized in the hard moments. So we've had a hard moment where players are literally quarantined now for months at a time. But to all their credit, they stayed in shape and they stayed sharp during this difficult time, and they've come back and really impressed me on the field. So again, to see the club grow, to see young players grow, it's something that is important to me. It's what our club believes in. We have an incredible school and an academy. For those that maybe don't understand it, I'll give the quick version of it. The NBA and Major League Baseball and the NFL, they have a draft, and it's a big ceremony. But we quite literally have players that from age 8 all the way up are playing in our youth academy, and we see it as a huge competitive advantage that these kids are in our culture from age 8 years old. No other team can draft them. No other team can touch them. They're ours, and that is such a powerful thing for a coach to see now. young players that are with us for so long. They're getting a great education at the school that we have, but also some of them eventually are going to make it to the professional ranks and play in Subaru Park. So again, it's a quick snapshot of what we're trying to build here and develop, but it's something that everybody's played a huge role in, the players, the staff, our ownership group, and now we're starting to see the results on the field over the last few seasons. And like I mentioned, now teams don't like to play us, which is the ultimate compliment as a coach.
Yeah, that's a good place to be when the teams don't want to see you.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I kind of lose my mind a little bit when I see now we're being selected to win this competition in Orlando. I'm kind of double checking myself. So it's a good thing, but now there's added pressure and we're not sneaking up on anybody.
Right, but there's so many different things to consider with this MLS's Back tournament happening in Orlando, slated to begin July 8th. But where the situation is right now, games have been postponed. Some games have been postponed. Some teams have postponed arrival and haven't made it in yet. And there have been multiple positive tests for COVID-19 on multiple teams. Most of them haven't made their way into Orlando yet, but there have been a few that popped up in Orlando.
Yeah, look, the last 3.5 months, if they've told us anything, it's that, we should be very humble in recognizing now a situation that we don't have a full grasp of, and as a country, I think with our leadership, maybe we've let ourselves down in a lot of ways and haven't been able to follow rules the right way. When the tournament was initially slated for, 2 or 3 months ago, and it was decided we were going to be coming down, obviously we couldn't have predicted that, Florida would now be a hot spot for things. So that was a tough thing for the league to go through. But, being down here now, we've been tested 4 times in the 4 days that we've been here. All of our tests have come back in a good way, in a positive way. So, it's difficult though for me to speak because, there's another team in FC Dallas that's had, 10 positive cases. So it's a challenging situation for them. So the league is trying to do the best thing for the game and for the competition. I hope that they'll be willing, and they've shown they're already willing to adjust and adapt to things. Just say certain things we just don't know enough about right now. The hope is to give everyone the game that they all love, the game of soccer that everybody's missed. But at the same time, I think everybody's safety and health has to come first. And that's been being here in the bubble. It does feel safe and for our team right now, but I'm sure if I spoke to FC Dallas members, it might be a different story. So I don't want to speak too out of turn, but I can speak for our group. And the protocols that are in place are as strict as possible. I mean, I can't set foot anywhere without this thing. It tracks where I am at all times. We're obviously in masks. We're social distancing. We're doing all the right things. But again, that unknown variable still comes in, and someone can catch it, and it can be problematic. We're doing our best.
Yeah. I'm sure your whole coaching staff and organization has given some thought to this. How does a coach strategize for training through potentially a number of players on their team testing positive for COVID-19? And again, this isn't just an MLS question. This is for all the leagues. Sure. And there is an assumption that, there might be some positive cases. So you might have some players who might not be there for important parts of the tournament. What's your strategy through that?
Yeah, I think there's no blueprint for this. I think with everybody, there's no coach's manual, there's no player's manual, there's no even organizational manual of how to run a competition in this environment because it's never been done. So I think you have to be able to adjust on the fly. I think that now as a head coach, you want to connect. If I date back to when we were quarantined early on months ago, you want to connect with your players on the human level. Most importantly, again, sometimes professional athletes people think they're superheroes or things like that. They're just people. So again, connecting with them on an emotional level was critical. Showing that you care, asking how their families are doing. That was the first step. We eventually progressed to individual workouts being sent home to them, which we found to be quite good. And when we jumped on Zoom calls, we adapted and learned just like, as convenient as this is now. We've learned now that this is something, a platform that makes sense for communication in a lot of different ways. We made them watch The Last Dance, and we had great discussions on that and all the team dynamics that go on during the course of a season on great teams. Arguments with maybe ownership or management or little internal fights with players and who makes the most money, and should he make more money? These are all real things that come up in locker rooms. So we found different unique ways to keep things fresh for the guys. We watched a lot of video. Unfortunately, The Last Dance probably got the most interest. I hate to admit that as a coach, but they really enjoyed talking about that. Finally, we got out on the field and were able to work in, which was, again, a unique environment where we're almost individual training. We couldn't get too close to them. Then it became small groups, and now we're fully cleared to train after all the testing and precautions that were taking place. So it's been a long time to get here. That's why I think there's a lot riding on this. And let's be honest, too. This is an opportunity for soccer, which is a rapidly growing sport in our country, but still one that needs more exposure on TV, on platforms like ESPN. So it's important that we get this right, and it's important that we play games, let's be honest, before the NBA does, because a lot more eyes will be on our game, and that's really important in terms of the TV marketing. People will tune in and see that we play great soccer, and it's a great sport, and obviously I think some new eyes and fresh eyes will be on it, being that we'll be ahead of the NBA and baseball.
And that's an interesting point, that you guys could take advantage of starting before the NBA does. But in some ways, the earlier schedule is putting pressure on getting healthy.
Correct. So it's a catch-22. So safety and health comes first, and I say that, and I sincerely mean that. But at the same time, there is this. It's a window of opportunity for our game to grow. Obviously, we want to do it in a smart and safe way, and we don't want players to be at risk at all. But at the same time, there's a sense of urgency because people are starved for sports right now. I think it gives them a little bit of a release, and can put some smiles on some faces. And look, the times of the games at 9 a.m. when we actually kick off, it's a window where I think that, we could gain a lot of new fans, and the game could grow and our league could grow. So it's an important competition for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. But again, I do stress, with me, safety and health of the players does still come first. But we do have that in our mind, that this is also important for growing the game of soccer in the United States.
The timing of matches are going to be interesting. You mentioned 9 a.m., 8 a.m. It's going to be some early morning games and then some late at night games. How are you preparing the team for different time slates for these matches, and then also no fans?
Yeah, there's a lot of sports science that goes into the when to eat the pregame meals, the amount of sleep that guys are getting. We've moved our training times and training the loading and how hard they are, and made them a little bit different than we normally would. We're going to kick off at 9 a.m., which as a coach I haven't done since I was probably a 13 or 12-year-old playing in a youth soccer tournament. So a 9 a.m. kickoff is going to be, for professional athletes, a big adjustment. People forget that now. These guys, that means their pregame meal is going to be roughly 6 a.m. in the morning. It's not often that you're eating a breakfast type of meal before you play. So there's a lot that goes into everything, the sleep, the diet, and just the mental and physiological parts of that, unique time. So we've put some things in place now. Our training times are a lot earlier, just to get the guys, active and stimulated, so that when 9 o'clock comes on Thursday, we're not the team that's sleepwalking. We want to be the team that's ready to go right off the bat. And we hope that we've taken the right measures to have that happen.
One aspect we haven't really discussed in depth, you mentioned that since coming to Orlando for the MLS's back tournament, you guys are in the bubble, if you will. You've really only seen each other. You've only seen your team. There's a lot of isolation in that, Coach, and a lot of time spent with each other. How are you guys preparing around the mental and emotional wellness aspect for your players during this isolated time?
Yeah, the mental part of the game is increasingly huge. Every player responds differently to different training sessions. Every player learns differently. Some learn from film, some learn from physically doing it on the field, some need to read, so it's very important. And look, every player and every athlete and any work environment is functioning best when they feel good about themselves. So I think oftentimes the mental side of the game has, at least in the past when I was a player, was neglected, and it was always tough it out, don't complain. You don't really know what people are going through with different things like anxiety. It's a difficult time right now for a lot of reasons. They're away from their families. There's a lot of emotional stress that's going on. So to the league's credit, they've done a good job of setting up sports psychologists and wellness doctors for the entire player and personnel side of things. So, but your point is fair. That is such a forgotten part of the game, and it's finally starting to grow and grow more, where athletes are actually being more open and talking about the difficult things that they have going on in their life. Because again, the sporting part is great, but at the same time, these guys are human beings, and again, that part of mental strength and mental toughness, which is a term that needs to kind of maybe go by the wayside. Just be yourself, be open, and feel free to speak your mind and let people know how you actually are feeling, not toughen things out.
Now, I know we're being very hopeful, but let's also talk reality. Players entering any bubble, there's a lot of isolation and quarantining in their room alone. Yeah. Can you tell me about what you've heard about stories like this?
Yeah, look, it's challenging for the players that do test positive. They're almost sent to a separate part of the hotel where they're monitored, obviously, by doctors, but they're alone, and that is a hard thing. You're talking about some kids that are, 18, 19, 20 years old, being alone in a hotel room. They're usually with a roommate at a minimum. They usually have the banter of the locker room and the day-to-day and the training and being on the field like a usual preseason would look like. This is different. When you do test positive, you're isolated on your own. So I guess it becomes now the job of, the coaches, the teammates to really try to connect and make them feel like they're still a part of things, because then you don't want to lose them to that, like you said, the mental side of things and getting into a dark place and feeling alone, which is, I think we've all had different versions of knowing what it's like to be isolated and alone and just down and depressed a little bit. And that's something you wouldn't want anyone to go through for sure. So everybody needs to do a good job and help out in that regard.
And can those players, if they test positive and are being isolated and quarantined, can they still do individual workouts?
They can from their own room, though, so they're kind of a little bit stuck. So that I have talked and heard from some coaches on some teams that have had some positive tests. They'll do things like Zoom workouts and go through and walk them through things. So to try to keep them going, to keep it positive, that's one method and tool that can be used.
Last bubble question. What are some of the most interesting quirks of living in the bubble?
Oh, man. So I've really taken to the isolation side of things. So I haven't been out. I know they do have a lot of good amenities for the players in terms of, things out by the pool and games with the right social distancing to play and partake in. So there are some positive things that are set up. There's players' lounges that they've done a good job with. But I'm keeping to myself. Union players who are in the clear and sharing as much time with them. Look, we do have a lot of downtime too. We're working very hard in training, but to fill the rest of the day now, you do have to find little unique ways and tools, and that might be a little side conversation with the player to tell them that they're doing good, or maybe tell them something they can work on. But you have to maximize all the minutes in the day, and again, try to grow as a coach and to try to make your team better in what are pretty unique circumstances right now. I wish I had a clear answer for you of exactly what to do in this situation, but we're going through it for the first time ourselves, and that's just me being honest with you.
You guys are, setting the tone, getting there early before the other sports leagues. We're all figuring it out as we go along, and all eyes will be on sports as they give it a try. So to kind of wrap this up, in your perspective, as someone who has competed as a player in the MLS and now as a head coach in the MLS, what's your vision for the growth of the MLS over time from what you've seen and what you expect? And then how does COVID-19 affect all of that?
Yeah, the first part, as a player in this league and now a coach for the last 20 years of my life, which sounds crazy, I've never thought it would grow this much in my lifetime. To see the game now when you turn on the television and then the stadiums are full and the talent that's on the field, even turning on and watching the English League or the German League and now MLS on, for hours and hours during the day, it's something that makes me proud. The owners and the investors that are coming into the league are obviously people with a lot of money, but also people that make smart investments, so they see the game as a real If it was a stock, it's something that they really buy into, and you're starting to see that right now with the excitement of the different owners. Obviously, no secret to the Philadelphia Union, with a guy like Kevin Durant coming along, and just how much that makes our club go up in stature. It makes us cool. It makes us, be affiliated with one of the best basketball players in the world. So, these things are real in our league now, and there's much more permanent than from my days of playing. The soccer-specific stadiums and just all the cities that want to be a part of it now. It's really grown fast, and now, gosh, the ultimate would be is if in 10, 15 years we are talked about like the NBA and the NFL in the United States, because the game of soccer has caught on in the rest of the world. The U.S. is kind of late to the party in terms of fully embracing it. So I'm excited to be part of MLS. It's a league that I've spent a lot of my life in, and to see it grow at the rate it has been awesome to watch, and it's something I'm really excited about. You can judge it too by the neighborhoods. I live in Center City, Philadelphia, and when kids are starting to walk around wearing Union jerseys or Red Bull jerseys, which I don't like to see, or New York City jerseys or LA jerseys, that means soccer is here for real, and it's become cool, which is really puts a smile on my face. We still have a lot of work to do, though. We're going to keep growing the game.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you so much for your just candid conversation here about your time in the bubble and your expectations for the MLS's back tournament. We wish you and the Philadelphia Union a lot of great luck and great health.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be on, and go Philadelphia Union.